Was Highjump a training exercise for a war with the Soviets? Was it a hunt for the remnants of the Third Reich? Or did the United States Navy encounter something in the deep interior of the ice that they were simply not prepared to fight? Today, Antarctica remains a land of treaties and science, protected by international law. But under the miles of ice, the secrets of Operation Highjump remain frozen in time. A reminder that there are still places on this earth where the map ends and the mystery begins. The year was 1946. The world was still scarred by the fires of World War II, a global conflict that had supposedly ended the age of conquest. But as the Iron Curtain began to drop across Europe, a new, colder front was opening at the bottom of the map. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the legendary explorer who had already looked into the eyes of the frozen unknown, was summoned back to service for the largest Antarctic expedition in human history. They called it Operation Highjump, officially the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Project. But the sheer scale of the mobilization told a different story. This wasn't a gathering of geologists and biologists. It was an invasion. 4,700 men, 13 ships, an aircraft carrier, and a submarine, the USS Senate, all steaming south toward a continent the size of the United States and Europe combined. As the fleet crossed the Antarctic Circle, the world of color vanished. The sailors were met by a monochromatic nightmare of blinding whites and bruised purples. The Ross ice shelf loomed over them like a 20-foot wall of glass, a fortress designed by nature to keep humanity out. Every compass on every ship began to fail. The magnetic poles were a chaotic mess, dragging needles in circles and rendering navigation a guessing game. "We are sailing into a void," one sailor wrote in his diary. "The sun never sets. It just circles us like a predator on the ice." The Seabees began the grueling work of constructing Little America 4, a tent city and airfield built on the shifting back of a glacier. They brought in massive D-8 bulldozers and R-45 Skytrain aircraft. But the cold was an active saboteur. Steel became brittle enough to shatter like glass. Oil turned into the consistency of frozen molasses. On December 30th, tragedy struck. The George 1, a Mariner aircraft on a mapping mission, was swallowed by a whiteout. The pilot, confused by the lack of horizon, flew directly into the side of a coastal ice ridge. 3 men, Lopez, Henderson, and Williams, became the first sacrifices to the operation. The 6 survivors spent 13 days in a sub-zero hell, huddled in the wreckage, eating raw chocolate and listening to the wind scream. When they were finally rescued, their eyes told a story of a psychological trauma that the Navy tried to suppress. But then, the reports started getting strange. Pilot David Bunner flew his plane over a region of Queen Mary Land and saw the impossible. 3 large, blue-green lakes surrounded by bare, brown earth. It was a thermal anomaly, an oasis in a desert of ice. Some whispered of underground heat sources. Others, fueled by the lingering paranoia of the war, whispered of secret Nazi bunkers. The rumored base to 1-1, Admiral Byrd himself began flying longer and longer sorties into the unexplored interior. During one flight toward the pole, his radio went silent for hours. When he returned, his logs were filled with cryptic references to land beyond the pole and the center of the great unknown. Tension was mounting. Radar operators reported blips that moved at speeds no 1,940 seconds propeller plane could match, shimmering lights that danced on the edge of the horizon before vanishing into the stratosphere. Then, without warning, the mission was cut short. Originally planned for 6 to 8 months, Byrd and his fleet were ordered to evacuate after only 8 weeks. They left behind millions of dollars in equipment, bulldozers abandoned in the snow, and a base that was quickly being reclaimed by the ice. On his way back, Byrd gave a chilling interview to the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. He warned that the United States must prepare for a new kind of warfare, where the enemy could fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. By 1959, the tension sparked by Operation Highjump culminated in something unprecedented in human history: the Antarctic Treaty. It was a cold peace for a cold continent. Today, Antarctica is the only continent on Earth that no one owns. Under the treaty, it is a natural reserve devoted to peace and science, but allowed is a relative term. Currently, 56 nations are party to the treaty, but only 29 consultative parties hold the power to make decisions. Why are they allowed? Because they act to have a seat at the table. A country must prove its commitment through substantial scientific research. It's a club where the entry fee is paid in ice cores and weather data. 7 nations still maintain slices of the pie. though the treaty keeps those claims frozen in time, neither recognized nor denied. It is a fragile equilibrium. We are allowed to stay as long as we don't dig for minerals, as long as we don't test weapons, and as long as we don't bring the wars of the North to the sanctuary of the South. We are guests on a continent that doesn't belong to us. We remain there by permission of a piece of paper and the mercy of the ice itself.